Hey, it's KR here talking today about how to make your encounters more interesting by not having them just be combat encounters. They can be that if the players choose to do that, or if there's some underlying reason for it. But to go into most situations with most sentient creatures and even animals thinking that there's probably not, or there's a good chance, let's say, that there's not going to be a hostile encounter that turns into combat. And why do I say that? Not just for the idea that it gets boring. Every time the players run into something, it's roll initiative, right? Every time it's just a battle, they fight. And again, fighting why do things run away? Because they don't want to die, right? That's why if you get down to half in a lot of systems, I've always played this from the beginnings. It was in the rules, and then I just kept it going. Why is that? Because people don't want to fight. If you take away from the races that are described or the creatures that are described, like the old gnolls, which I think that's changed, the trolls, things that are perpetually hungry or angry, mindless beasts, although a great white shark, they show them swimming around people from these drones. And they're not just mindless killing machines. Every time they see anything moving, they attack it. They're very cautious. They're also, is that something that I should eat? They don't want to get hurt. Well, this is the thing. Most creatures, if they can avoid it, won't get into a fight unless they think it's easy pickings. Let's say sentient creatures we're talking about, where they can get something, but they're not going to get hurt. But a group of adventurers, typically, if they have any experience, they can look at that and go, that could be trouble, right? So most things don't want to necessarily get hurt. That's the number one rule, right? They don't want to die. They don't want to get into some stupid fight they can't win. And that happens in real life too. A lot more shouting matches, a lot more posturing than actual fights. And another big reason I think that you don't have to justify, it just is realistic about not turning every encounter into a battle, is that sentient creatures have other things to do than just fight anyone who comes into their purview, that they see. And so when you create an encounter, what are the sort of things that they might be doing? So let's use an example of the classic orc encounter. And we're playing orcs like I do, which is they have a culture that celebrates martial values and being tough and not giving up and whatever, taking what you can take and all that stuff. They're not inherently evil or anything. That's just, they're like Vikings, I always say. You run into Vikings, you might be able to give you a fight, right? But when the players run into these orcs, what are they doing? Are they a hunting party looking to kill whoever comes along next? Okay, you can have that. But suppose they're in the middle of a feast, celebrating something. Suppose they are in the middle of a wedding between two orcs, a wedding between two, that's uniting two tribes, and the players come along. And the players, now you can just say they see this wedding going on, this festival, they've got other things to do, and they just wander off, because that's one way. They don't see them. Well, let's say they do. Who goes there? What's going on? There's this wedding going on. Classic example, I was in Montenegro, my wife and I, which is and we were in the city, the main capital, which of course I can't think of right now. I'll put it here. And we saw this Eastern Orthodox cathedral. And we just parked there. We wanted to go. It was spectacular. We go inside. There's a wedding. Not a huge wedding, a small wedding. The Orthodox wedding, they're wearing these crowns. And some person comes to us and says, oh, are you, and we explain we were just going. And so we talked to some people in the party, and they were doing, and we said, oh, we don't have a gift or anything. My wife had this little card, like I think it was a New York City Transit card. She said, oh, here, it's a little gift to remember us by. And they looked at it, and they said, oh, thank you. These Americans came by at the wedding, just watched. We were very respectful, and then we didn't know the reception or anything. They had this little gift. Well, why not give the orcs a gift? Why not help them celebrate? Why not be their friend, or at least their uneasy, associate or whatever it is, right? So they're having some ceremony. The players come along. What do you do? How are the players? What do you ask them? My eternal question: what do you do? And if they say we attack, well, first of all, if you have 100 orcs, two tribes together, that's not necessarily a good idea. Feel free. Because now we've got a torture ceremony at the end of every good wedding, right, or something. But it opens up the possibility of a wedding. What do you do at weddings? You toast them. You celebrate that. It's more interesting, and that's what orcs may do. I mean, of course they do. It isn't just necessarily some, just pick them up, grab them by the hair, caveman style or something. They have a society, right? They do things. And similarly, a funeral. Supposing that you see orcs and they're having this funeral and you're watching and there's this elf laid out and they're honoring this elf. They defeated these elves or something, or this was a champion and they're honoring that elf. If you step in, especially if you have an elf in your party or half elf or just, the humanoids that hang out with them, and maybe you say, we would like to honor that too, or you get the story, maybe you say, we'll take the body back to where they live because we can go there, something like that. But again, a funeral is this ceremony that has, especially in a martial culture where you have battles, that's a big deal. And it's a big deal too, if you see it and you get involved, again, you have to be respectful. And you have to acknowledge that in the world of warriors, we respect those that act with warrior values, courage, defending their territory or their brethren. And that's interesting. What if the orcs are having a meeting, a council between tribes or between other humanoids? Let's say the eternal enemies that we always have, the orcs and the dwarves, are involved in some tense negotiations. They're tired of this situation and the players just come across this. Again, do they hear about it? I'm just thinking that, well, okay, let's just say I'm thinking about this is what I do as a GM, right? The players hear about this. There's tense negotiations aren't going bad, and they go there as neutral, honest brokers. Maybe you've got orc characters in your party. And so they go to this thing, and now we have an encounter, very tense. Both sides want to win in this negotiation. There may be a threat of violence breaking out at any moment. And the players now have a purpose here to get these negotiations to work. Or maybe they're trying to, suss out a traitor in the midst, whether it's an orc that really wants this to not go well, or a dwarf who says we should not be dealing with these orcs. So there's all sorts of possibilities here in this encounter that isn't just fighting. And it's because the orcs and the dwarves don't necessarily want to get into an endless war of attrition with each other because people don't want to die. And of course, I'm using orcs. This could be any kind of sentient creatures, right? So another classic is you see a group, maybe it's a smaller group. Now, this might be a group that could be easily killed by the players, so just bear with me. But there's a lost detachment, a lost group. So maybe it's not so easy, but they don't know where they are. They are lost. They're clear. They're wandering. They're looking around. Do the players engage them and ask them what's going on? And do these lost orcs or whatever they are, they're going to be more friendlier because these guys might be able to help them get out of here, get back to their tribal lands. So it's a different situation than just, we see orcs, let's attack. It's clear that they're lost. And again, if the players do attack them, maybe they just all scatter and run off. They don't have their commander with them, or maybe they do stand and fight, whatever. But it's more interesting if there's something like that. Another one that you can have is just after a battle, the orcs, and you don't have like slaughtered, a caravan and women and children, and they're just picking through the refuse because the players are just going to attack, probably. They're not going to come up and go, hey, what's up, guys? Looks like you did pretty good here, right? So they had a battle with something and maybe they're running away from this. There's a few stragglers. Maybe they are surveying the battlefield. They killed gnolls or undead or whatever it is, and the players come across this. So they may say, oh, they're weakened. Again, depending on your group. But the way I play and the way I present my world, the players might just say, what happened here? What's going on? Because they know the orcs just fought a battle. They don't necessarily want to, they might be really hurt. And you can get information. And then you say, well, we've got some bandages, right? Some systems have that. I know Castles and Crusades and stuff like that. Or we could do battle medicine or medicine checks, as in Pathfinder. We'll heal you up. We'll help you guys out because you defeated these trolls or these zombies or whatever it was. Now you've got, friends. Yeah, I'd say friends. What the heck? You came along. You had an opportunity. They were back on their heels, right? Because they were all injured. And now you've got an opportunity to do something different and get information and talk and find out about what's going on in this area. What's the deal with the zombies? Well, they're coming out of this temple and suddenly there's activity over there. Oh, interesting. Show us where that is. We'll kill some more zombies. So, and all this comes out of not thinking about every encounter has to be a battle, has to be roll initiative. And we so often with systems, the character sheets are all based on fighting in terms of the abilities and feats. And, again, it's not always, but spells are offensive and stuff. That's what people think about. That's what I want to use. I want to see what my character can do against a party of orcs. That's like a fair fight. But it's when you're exploring the world and trying to get information to get the big score in terms of treasure, magic, or you have objectives, which is what I tend to have in my world, where you're trying to get this and that and this information and solve this mystery and help these people. It's much better to talk to people about things than just kill them or take a prisoner and put a knife to his throat and say, "Tell me about X." They're going to be a lot more prone to give you real information about X if they trust you. If they think you're on their side, or you're not just going to kill them outright. So, and when the players realize that, I think they embrace it. They embrace the idea that people don't want to necessarily fight and they don't want to get hurt. They want to navigate through their way through the world and just get along a little bit. And again, a shout out to my Patreon supporters. Just did magic shoelaces. Oh, this was quite a little PDF. Really fun to do. I'd like to hear about you guys. How often do you try to avoid combat in your world? Like, subscribe, all that stuff. And of course, keep playing an RPG game, whichever one you choose, and tell somebody else about it.